Welcome in, everybody, to another nighttime edition of Birds 365, a Thursday edition, day 2 of training camp, of practice at least is officially in the books. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday, man? I know it's been a long day for you. Let's close it out strong here on Birds 365.
Yeah, another humid day. This time it was Jeremiah Trotter Jr. balling, a couple cramps, but nothing serious there, getting carted off. So it's always a concern when you see somebody carted off, but nothing serious there. But yeah, solid day for the offense again. So back to back, Jalen Hurts was very sharp today. So that was a tremendously positive. It was like a Sam Bradford practice. Ball's not hitting the ground, Xander Krause. That's
baby.
That's not a lot of splash plays, but that's always good. And Kellen Moore obviously going with a little bit more tempo, a little bit more short stops. So you should have higher completion percentages in that type of instance, certainly on 7-on-7s. And the Eagles were able to do that today. So, yeah, productive day. I would say the offense, a bit of a surprise early in camp and how quickly they've assimilated and how quickly they've looked sharp. And I guess you could take that negative on the other side of the football, where there's a lot of rotational things going on at both cornerback and linebacker. So maybe that's part of it before they settle down to what Vic Fangio is ultimately going to use. So maybe that's part of it, guys in and out, a little bit more uncertainty. And then, of course, Vic's comments about Bryce Huff has got a lot of people concerned. I wouldn't be concerned about it. Bryce had a sack today, one of the few, I would say, somewhat notable plays. It's tough to say if anything's really a sack in practice, but certainly looked like it would have been a sack. But, he's going to, from Vic's standpoint, and, I don't think the guy, and I think he's a breath of fresh air. He doesn't bullshit. He's honest. And I think people are taken aback when they see that in the NFL, where everything is couched and everybody tries to protect everybody's feelings. And he's like, he's not ready now, but he thinks he will be. And, second day of training camp.
I absolutely love it. But, let's get into some of the other Vic Fangio comments. I thought he had some good comments all day. Best players play was one that got some headlines. I thought that was good. The Bryce Huff, though, comments, John, I got to ask you. I mean, listen, I love the Fangio part of it. I love the honesty. I love that he doesn't care about who he's talking up, and he's going to give you the honest truth, at least what's on his mind in that moment. I love that about him. But any concern with what he had to say about Bryce Huff? Is he a 3-down guy? Oh, not really yet. Not really. I mean, this is kind of the guy that Howie just paid all this money to. Any concern with what he had to say about Bryce Huff?
Well, I think that the full quote, and I'm pulling it up, he said, I think everybody thought he could, and knowing what the floor was just rush downs, but he's taken the challenge on very well. And I do think he has the talent to do what we want him to do. It's just that he's got to get familiar with doing it. So it'll be a work in progress. Does he look like he can do it today? No. I do think eventually he will. That was the entire quote.
Yeah.
So, if they had what he's saying is, if they had to play on Sunday, he's probably not going to be effective at being the flat defender that Vic wants them to be in pass coverage. Maybe he's not going to be effective in run support until he kind of figures it out. That's what he's saying. And the floor is the rush. They know he's a good pass rusher. Right. They've already seen that. And that's the floor. But yeah, I mean, other coaches, let's be honest, they would couch that in a different way to make people feel better.
100%.
Like I don't want to feel better. I don't know where. I'm sure Eagles fans, most of them want to feel better.
No,
I'd rather be told the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be told the truth. Now, Vic had some issues in Miami because not everybody sees it that way, and they don't want to be. And Jordan Davis talked today as well, and he was talking about Vic, and he's got, he's not asking him about his family or things like that. He said, I got player development people for that. I got friends for that. He's about football and he's trying to win games. He's trying to make players better. And the ones who embrace that will probably like Vic a heck of a lot. If you have a soft skin, you're probably not going to like it. And the good news is Bryce Huff spoke as well. He spoke to us and he seemed fine with it. He's not concerned. So, he's not perfect, Bryce Huff.
No, I love it though. I mean, I love that Vic Fangio takes that approach because you're right. Most coaches would just be like, and talk it up. And I thought it was also funny. Like, is Howie going to have a problem with any of this? Even the James Bradbury comments, Johnny's like, oh yeah, James, he's probably not going to be. He's not going to be
everybody.
I'm like, oh my God, Howie's spending all this time to try and build up the persona of James Bradbury to flip him for a 5th or a 6th or whatever. And Vic Fangio just takes the needle and stabs it in the balloon and says, oh no, he's probably not going to be a safety, which is just, listen, sometimes radical honesty, John, can get you into some trouble. That's the truth. So,
oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
It gets me into trouble all the time. I was the one who asked him about Bradbury. And, he was even honest with me. I said, a bunch of people have done it over the year. And I'm thinking Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, superstar level players. And Vic's right. And he says, well, the truth is, no, there's not a lot of them. And he's right. There's some and very small, but the list of guys transitioning with success is small. And then at the end of it, he's still going to play some corner for us too. And I remember saying on the show, the longer you keep Bradbury, the longer Vic's going to go, this guy knows how to play.
Yeah, right.
And I got a bunch of young corners who are, on day one, I talked about Paris Campbell was lighting them up with these comeback routes. They don't know how to play yet. And if you're Howie Roseman and you keep keeping Bradbury, you might wake up one day and see Vic's going to use him.
I think we're closer to that point than we think. I think that point is, a couple days away with the way Vic sounds when he's talking up there. But no, you're right. It was a breath of fresh air, though. I saw you put that on Twitter. I mean, it's great, especially here in Philly. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to knock anybody else, but when you have a coach like that here that just comes out and says what's on his mind, and you can tell that's what's on his mind, and it's great. I thought it was great. I thought his comments on Jordan Davis were pretty good too, because in the same breath where, he says that about Bryce and he says that about James, and you take him for his word of radical honesty. Well, he said he was encouraged by what he's seen from Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. So I'm going to take him at his word on that as well. And I thought that was pretty good to hear him say that. I know it wasn't like it was high praise or anything, but he said he was encouraged at what he saw. Yeah.
And he's already said that about Jalen Carter. When we spoke to him back in the spring, he said, doesn't matter how we use him, he's going to be good. He's one of those guys. With Jordan, it's more of, he's got to get in better shape to play more because he wants to play him a lot. And he's been very honest about that. And he has gotten in better shape, Jordan Davis. So we'll see how it shakes out when he has to play, 50 snaps a game. We'll see if he can handle it. And you're probably not going to be able to see that until the regular season comes. So it's sort of just the way it is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Anything else that Vic Fangio said, Johnny Mac, that you want to
the analytics stuff was tremendous.
Oh, that was great.
I
loved how he said nobody else has heard it.
Oh, I loved it. We were, off camera. Even your guys, he's like, nope. He doesn't give the secret sauce out to anybody, which is hilarious to me, because he's got so many disciples,
right?
And he doesn't tell them. But so that part was hilarious. And he's old, so people assume he doesn't like analytics, and he said, "I love analytics." But then he was honest and he says, give me anything you want and I'll sort through it and use it as I see fit.
Right.
But I've been
In other
doing
words, nobody's going to dictate me what do
yeah,
you do on defense based on any analytics, but I still like them. I still use them.
yeah. But and he said, but I've been doing analytics myself on my own way for years, and I don't share my process with anybody.
Yeah.
I wonder, so that means he's not sharing his process with Nick Sirianni, but again, or any of the other head coaches he's worked for.
Yeah, or any of the
Which I
previous coordinators we've had who were Fangio disciples.
which I find hilarious. Maybe I'm the only one, but
No, I'm with you on that for sure.
he said, I think analytics people miss the boat a little bit on what's important, but I'm not going to tell them what's important, which is tremendous, tremendous
Yeah,
on so many levels. But I remember talking to the Eagles have always been ahead of the curve when it comes to using analytics. And it really started with Joe Banner. And I remember talking to Joe once about analytics, and he's like, he said basically the same thing as Vic said in a different way. And his point was what a bunch of guys miss. Like you can give me the data, but everybody can get the data. Is it actionable? Can you make it actionable? In other words, can you make it help us over somebody else? Like nobody gives a shit about, with all due respect, and we just had Aaron Schatz on the show and some of these guys who do. All right. Yeah, we see the numbers. Now, how is that actionable? That's what NFL teams are looking for, the smart ones. How does that give you an advantage on game day? And that's the tough part. That's the tough part.
Yeah, so
and
good
Vic,
stuff.
Vic claims he knows.
Yeah, well, good stuff from Vic Fangio. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. It was great listening to him, and I really feel good about where our defense being in his hands. It really seems as though a coach has arrived and is going to coach these guys. Even I forget who said it. I think I read it in the comments somewhere. I didn't see it in person, but I think somebody, I don't know if it was Jordan or Jalen Carter, who said he's already coaching us up when we were out of position, telling us to get over and move over, whatever it is. And I just think that's great. I mean, you need that, and that's good to have a coach like there, especially when you got a lot of young guys trying to reach their potential.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have had a lot of good defensive coaches. Jim was great. Jim Schwartz, Jim Johnson, Jonathan Gannon was great, despite what people think. They've had a lot of good coaches. So, I mean, Vic is a great coach as well. But I love the honesty part of it with Vic Fangio. And it got him in trouble sometimes. So we'll see. You have to keep an eye on that because it is a different era.
Yeah.
It's not 1984 when he started. And, some people in Miami didn't like it. So
A lot of people in Miami didn't like it.
It seems like some of the young players in the Eagles have embraced it, and we'll see if that lasts. Hopefully it does because he's a very good coach, but you always got to buy in. I mean, that was the whole problem with Sean Desai. Nobody bought in, didn't have the presence, all that kind of stuff. Not that he wasn't a smart guy. He's a very smart guy, although evidently Vic didn't teach him everything. But I've joked on the show a lot. If Sean Desai did what Vic's doing with Quinyon Mitchell, people would be up in arms. Playing him at dime linebacker, playing him at slot corner, playing him at all three positions. People would be up in arms, but he's got the reputation and cachet to do what he wants.
No doubt about it,
And
John. Yeah,
he's going to do what he wants.
John, anything else in the press conferences today that stood out? I know a bunch of the players spoke. I don't want to spend too much time on the press conferences, but before we move into the on-field stuff, anything else stick out? I wasn't able to catch all of them. Admittedly, I did have some work to do on the back end. I was live at one point, and then we got ready for National Football Show, so I didn't catch them all. But anything stand out to you from the player press conferences?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I don't know if I brought this up yesterday. I should have, because it's been one of the things I've been talking about. And ever since Tom Brady came out with that viral clip and that everybody kind of picked up on. You know, Jalen hadn't been at control of you know, protection checks and things like that with Jason Kelsey around. And he had mentioned yesterday he wanted to take more of a lead with that now that Kelsey's gone. So Cam Jurgens spoke today, and it seems like, you know, it's still a combination thing. They have to be on the same page, but it seems like Jalen wants to take more of a lead with that. And I think that's a positive thing. And I think he's going to take more of a lead because he's got to, you know, I don't care. Jason Kelsey's maybe one of the 5 greatest centers of all time, and he can do it, but I'd rather have the quarterback do it. And I think the Eagles are warming up to that now that you have the ship to Cam Jurgens. So I think that's a positive.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive thing. So we'll continue to watch that closely. Keep all you guys updated. I'm going to welcome everybody in tonight, Johnny Mac. Another nighttime edition, just our second ever following last night's show. So thank you all for being here. Dank and Yale, Twiz the Jigga, Forrest Roth, Jack Straw, Akbar, Divine, Slagger. Appreciate all you guys for being here. Niners all damn days in here. Appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Share the show with a friend. Tell a friend. This is the best Eagles content out there. Best Eagles podcast out there. Stay up to date on your birds. Stay knowledgeable about your birds. So tell your friends and drop a like button for us. Johnny Mac, let's move into the on-field stuff. You started it off in your opening comments. Offense looking good. Jalen Hurts looking good. What did you see out there from the on-field stuff today at day 2 of camp?
Yeah, not a lot of splash, as I said, but the offense was very effective, just very crisp, very sharp, whatever term you want to use. The ball, when the ball hit, it did hit the ground.
Surgical, John, was the word. I think it was Elliott Shore Parks used. Surgical, baby.
Yeah, well, Elliott's counting up the stats, which Nick loves, by the way. And I don't think there was one incompletion except for a couple drops. Dallas dropped one, and I forget somebody else dropped one. And I don't think the ball hit the ground the rest of the day with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. You know, most of it was, as I said, but there were a couple throws to AJ down the field. They had a bang 8 route, which is over the middle sort of slant that hasn't been a strength. That should be a strength because, well, it's ironic. They're very effective when they throw the ball over the middle of the field, but they don't throw it over the middle of the field. So I shouldn't say that, but they should do it more. That was one of the splashier plays, and AJ got downfield 7-on-7s, about maybe a 25, 30-yard gain. Had a classic toe tap from Devontae Smith, which he does so well. So the big guys, you know, sometimes we don't even talk about AJ because he's so good. Yeah. We're all like, well, you know, yeah, he's good. And you move on to the other guys. But yeah, very sharp day. Sam Bradford day, I called it, because that's what you know, Chip used to say about Sam Bradford. Not, you know, it goes all the way back to Gil Brandt. Sam was so accurate, and he really was. Especially on 7-on-7s. Ball would never hit the ground. And that was so it was a Sam Bradford day from an accuracy catching the football standpoint.
Which is a positive thing coming off of OTAs, John, where you know, it was reported and you watched them in person. Jalen wasn't all that accurate, and the balls weren't coming out on time and on target. And it seems like he's settling into the offense a little bit, right? Getting a little bit more comfortable. Is that the feeling you're getting from the first 2 days?
Yeah, he's looked very good. Whatever happens between the spring and the summer. And he also looks in the running game. He looks like his explosive self. So last year, everybody kind of remarked that he didn't seem to have the same juice. And it was understandable after he hurt his knee and he was banged up. But even before that, you go back to week 1, before there were any injuries, he didn't seem like the same guy from a movement perspective. And he looks like he's back to being that guy. and that's a positive as well. That'll obviously make him much more dangerous. So yeah, all positive for Jalen Hurts at this point, I would say. Um, and the offense as a whole has been, as I said, not a lot of splash plays, but just a lot of good, competent offense. And, you know, maybe that's a good thing because while people, you could argue the Eagles fell in love with the explosive play and tried to push it to get it too much. If you think about the Chiefs and their shift from Tyreek Hill, the Tyreek Hill Chiefs to the post Tyreek Hill Chiefs, they had that trouble where they would get
Right.
frustrated and try to push the ball down the field, and they couldn't. And all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes kind of figured it out and started taking what the defense was giving them. And maybe that's where the Eagles are. Maybe they're having the same arc. They had so much success with the explosive plays and they fell in love with them. Who wouldn't? You'd rather have an explosive play, but if people are going to play their safeties in the parking lots and they're going to take it away, you gotta shift gears. And maybe they've kind of figured that out.
John, any commentary, any perspective, anything changed so far? We talked a lot in the offseason about being concerned maybe that they would try and make Jalen Hurts into something he's not. Just based on what you've seen in these first couple days, how does Jalen look? Do they look like they're trying to pull him out of what he's comfortable in? I know we've said he's looked good, but does the offensive style look different for him? And any concern that they are going to try and, change him and make him something that he's not?
No, not yet, and that's positive. If anything, there's probably been more of an emphasis on option plays, which would obviously bring his running ability into the equation. So, no, it looks like they're going to take advantage of what they have at the quarterback position, and they should. And if you listen to our shows back in the spring during minicamp, during OTAs, I said a number of times when it was ugly that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Trying to explain what practice is. You mentioned our buddy Elliott Shore-Parks. I love Elliott, but practice isn't, and that's why Nick can't stand those numbers because it's not what practice is designed for. Your practice is designed to get better. One of the most frustrating things to watch Jalen Hurts, especially early in his career, was he would hold on to the football in 7-on-7s, and he was still doing that in the spring to a certain degree. It's like, why are you doing that, dude? Just let it rip. It's practice. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, it is Philadelphia. And people will make a big deal out of it if he throws an interception. So unfortunately, that kind of stuff creeps into it. But yeah, there needs to be more of an emphasis and education, I would say, on what practice is. But that's a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, I think that's part of what it's become. And here's what I'll say about Elliott Shore-Parks, which I find interesting from a third party perspective and just how I've seen it. Everybody loves making fun of Elliott for doing it, and I get it. I understand that it's not what the purpose is, and I understand it. But everybody uses it. Everything I've listened to today, everybody has talked about the numbers that Jalen Hurts has gotten, and I'm like, listen, this is where I can respect from a content standpoint. I can respect Elliott doing it, and everybody loves to throw the jab.
Well, with all due respect, and Elliott's a friend of mine.
Yeah, I know that.
I ain't using his stats. You've never seen me use those stats. Yeah, they're silly. But
they're silly, but people use it to talk about how good the quarterback is doing in camp. Yes or no?
Well, yeah, most people are, and a lot of people are. But if they're using it, as I called it a Sam Bradford day. You can use it anyway. I say all the time, 7-on-7s are designed for the offense. You're supposed to complete passes in 7-on-7s. That is a offensive tinted, tilted session or one-on-ones, offensive lineman versus defensive lineman. Stoutland hates them not from the standpoint of getting guys better. They're very valuable, but from the standpoint of people paying so close attention. And the best example of that would be, for years, Joe Osman. Nobody remembers Smoking Joe, except when Jordan talks about him, beating the brakes off Jordan Mailata on a daily basis. And, Joe was really, was going to make the team when he tore his ACL. He was going to make the team that year. So it was a good story, but I mean, he was never going to turn into a $120 million player, which is what Jordan Mailata has turned into with two $60 million extensions. Yeah, I mean, it's not what practice is. That's why I just said it's a tough hill to climb to explain to people. And you're proving my point, Xander. I mean, I don't care how many people use those stats. They're not meaningful. And just as if he has a bad day with 3 interceptions, that's not necessarily meaningful either if they're trying to work on something.
John, you can control your narrative, but you can't control the narrative, and it is used in the narrative. So that's my point. That's all it is. Is that I understand why he does it from a media, from a content perspective. Everybody talks about him because of it, and it works. But I understand what you're saying. It's not your style. It's not your MO. It's not what you're using and how you're analyzing the game. I'm just pointing out. I'm just giving them credit. That's all. I think it's
well,
cool
and you have to, and there's no way even, and I'm at practice every day. There's no way for me. I'm not allowed in the meetings. There's no way for me to understand what the Eagles are trying to accomplish on a particular day, in a particular drill, in a particular period. Unless we ask somebody who knows. And sometimes they answer the question, sometimes they don't. It generally happens after the fact. And sometimes they tell the truth and sometimes they don't. If it's Vic, he's going to tell the truth. And that's a good thing to have. But yeah, I mean, practice is practice. People should understand that, whether it's Allen Iverson's conversation or spring training in baseball, or that Doug Peterson. I tell the story all the time, and Andy Reid, they would have these 10-10-10 practices where they would literally publish information for the media, because there's a bunch of people that show up one day, 2 days, TV people are coming for one day. And in these 10-10-10 sessions, it was not competitive. It was 10 minutes of the offense servicing the defense and vice versa, and then special teams. And you were just giving them looks, sort of like a scout team approach. And, sure enough, it would be Carson Wentz threw an interception and he's just trying to help the defense and throwing it, I mean, so I can't tell people what to think. I agree with you, but I do the best I can to try to educate as many people as possible. And the ball didn't hit the ground today. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, especially when you have a new offensive coordinator in here who's, Jalen made the comments, 95% new, whether it is or not. I think part of that has heightened where we are. And, people like hearing that Jalen Hurts is having a couple good practices here. And I think it's a good thing. I think it is a good sign that he's getting more comfortable maybe in the offense, regardless of if it's practice or not. I do think there's some things you can take from it, especially as a fan or somebody that's not down there every day and doesn't have the the ability to be there and watch every snap.
Oh, you can take, I'm not saying practice is very important. You can take a lot of things from practice. stats on practice are not valuable.
Yeah, I
Are not
understand.
meaningful. You know, there's so many plays that should have been whistled dead, that should be whistled dead, that aren't whistled dead. There's so many because they're trying to protect the quarterbacks, they're trying to protect the players, or vice versa. There's so many plays that are whistled dead that shouldn't be whistled dead, and maybe who knows what it could have been from the offensive perspective. Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. Their practice numbers are meaningless. That's
Johnny
all I'm
Mac,
trying to say. Not practice.
got it.
Practice is very important.
Johnny Mac, let's go to the defense. What'd you see from the defense today? There was a couple storylines I want to get into with it. Obviously, the main one for me was that Keely Ringo got the first reps at right cornerback opposite Darius Slay. So I thought that was interesting that they're doing some rotation back there. But what did you see from the defense today overall?
Yeah, we'll see. They did the same thing in the spring. We'll see when it settles down, if it settles down. As far as the rotation, tomorrow, I assume they're having a walkthrough tomorrow, so it might skew things a little bit. And then we'll be back in there on Saturday. You know, who knows? And the walkthrough might be Quinyon. He might be the third. Because he's getting first team reps as well. So it looks like they're going to continue to try to figure out what their best option is opposite Darius Slay. And we'll see when he settles down. I think that's part of the problem, though, when you talk about Vic and the defense versus Kellen and the offense. Kellen pretty much knows what his offense is going to be. And Vic's just trying to figure out what his defense is going to be and who's going to be those meaningful players. I mean, everybody got first team reps at linebacker today.
Yeah.
Everybody, except Oren Burks because he's hurt. Jeremiah Trotter got first team reps before he got hurt, but his was just a cramp. Don't be concerned. Ben Van Sumeren, again, second, he got some. Nakobe got more. He keeps getting more and more. I think, you know, it's pretty clear that the favorites are going to be Devin White and Nakobe Dean, I think, to be the linebackers, but they're giving everybody an opportunity. Everybody. And that means, you know, there's not as much continuity when you have these constantly rotating bodies. So when Vic finally decides where he wants to go, I think that's when the defense will need to take off. But yeah, they haven't been nearly as impressive as they were in the spring. And again, maybe that has to do with the fact that it seemed like Kellen Moore was forcing to do Jalen Hurts things he was uncomfortable with. So we talked about Reed Blankenship was, you know, there were so many interceptions, so many tip balls, so many dropped interceptions. You're not seeing those same throws. And all of a sudden the interceptions have evaporated. They haven't thrown a pick yet, any of the quarterbacks, in two days of practice. So, you know, that's sort of goes back to the practice discussion as well. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do? And it seems like Kellen Moore's further along because he knows what his offense is going to be, who's going to play, and Vic doesn't yet.
John, what's the word on the Kobe Dean? They still confident? It just seems like Zach Bond gets the nod again. I don't know. Is it just different based on different packages or different, you know, defensive coverages that they're in? They're going to use Zach versus Nakobe, or is Nakobe looking like he's going to be fighting for the starting spot?
No, he's going to be fighting for it, but you know, Zach, you know, Vic also took certainly some people took a backhanded shot at Nakobe as well, about him being good. And then he said in college, which, you know, a lot of people took off into a different direction. as they are want to do.
Wait, who said that? Vic Fangio said that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is, he was a very good player in college, and he hasn't proven anything in the pros. It's not incorrect. Again, he's telling the truth. But yeah, even though they rotated at linebacker and a cornerback, and Kaylee Ringo got the first rep today. Again, I think people get caught up in that. I think if you talk about overall reps, I think there's been more shifting at linebacker than at corner. So even though they started each day with Devin and Zach,
right,
there's been more first team reps for the other guys. And they keep increasing for Nakobe. So, and that goes back to the spring as well, because Vic kind of explained he was not 100% yet in the spring, and he missed the start of OTAs, Nakobe Dean, and he was only back for the last 2 practices. I think he was fully cleared. So, he's just, this is the first time he's had him at 100%, and I think you're going to see his first team reps increase. It's probably going to be a 3-horse race with Devin, Nakobe, and Zach. But they're even giving the other guys, Ben Van Sumeren and Jeremiah Trotter, an opportunity. So, that's it. Yeah, I'm looking for it. Here it is. I like Zach. He's a guy that's played very little inside linebacker in his career. We think he can do it, and he said that pretty consistently, Vic, since he got Zach Bond. Obviously, Devin has had a career where he has done it. Nakobe has shown that he could do it in college. Really hadn't had the same opportunity to do it here because his first year is behind 2 good players, which is true. And last year he was injured. So completely factual statement. But people, it's funny, Xander. People do not like, they think they like it and they think they want honesty.
Yeah.
But when they get honesty, because I had like 5, 6 people come up to me, and I'm talking about people in the media who said, "Boy, that's a shot." And I'm like, "Is it?"
Or is it? That's John. That was my takeaway on the Bryce Huff comments. It wasn't, he never said Bryce Huff can't do it. He never said Bryce Huff doesn't have the talent. He just said Bryce Huff hasn't been asked to do it in the NFL. He doesn't have experience doing it, and it's a work in progress. We think he can do it. And it was, like I said at the beginning, it was radically honest, and not everybody can handle that.
Well, and that's part of it. That's what I think, fans and even certain media members have gotten to the point where they're so used to coaches protecting their players at all costs that when they hear just laid out honesty, they're taken aback by it. Like the Hard Knocks is a good example of this. Every single team in this league has honest, frank discussions about their talent and their personnel. And there's some negatives in those conversations. Nobody wants them public because of the reason you saw that happen to the New York Giants. All of a sudden, people are like, how could you talk that way? How could you disrespect so-and-so? That's the nature of the game. I mean, like I said, the Eagles probably had some negative conversations about Hassan Reddick before he got traded.
Yeah, right. You roll a camera on them. Yeah, people.
And they don't want them public.
Yeah.
It's funny, when people are honest. And again, Vic said nothing wrong, whether it was about Bryce Huff or Nakobe Dean, but people took it as it was wrong. And wrong may be the wrong word, but you get my point. People took it with a negative connotation.
Yep, exactly.
And it's crazy because there's so little of it. It becomes perceived as negative.
John, we're going to go to our first timeout. I want to wrap up this overall open. I just want you to kind of, for anybody that watches this after and for the segment that I pull individually, We normally do who won the day, offense, defense. You have the offense winning this one again?
Yeah.
2-0, and the offense is 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite. Who won the practice? Yeah, 2-0. 2-0 for the offense.
Well, 2-0 for the offense. So they looked pretty good. I thought it was all positive stuff. Stay tuned, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you guys drop a like on the show. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you leave a review. We appreciate you guys for listening and for watching. We're going to come back. We got a lot still to talk about here on this nighttime edition of Birds 365. We'll be live here till 8 p.m. Still got to talk about the wide receiver 3. Johnny Ross was out there today. A lot to talk about still with, Cam Jurgens. Apparently he was doing some pulling. So we'll talk to John McMullen about that. Stay tuned, everybody. Birds 365 will be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.